They didn't just cut down my trees, they cut out a chapter of my life. And they did it before sunrise so no one would see. The morning they vanished, the yard smelled like sap and gasoline. 6 raw stumps glistened where shade had been, sawdust, drifting like snow. Yesterday the birds made a green hush. Today heat leaned at the windows. The fence looked naked. My hands shook as I stepped into the white dust and felt it cling like ash. We planted those maples the week Lucy came home from the hospital, back when sleep was a rumor. Every spring we measured her against them, pencil ticks on the gate. Her first word for wind was wish. The HOA hated our lanterns in the branches. That was when the letters began. Polite, pointed, full of harmony. The paper on my door was not polite. Notice of remediation, it said, Section 4.3. Vegetative noncompliance, hazard abatement conducted. Signed, Marla Brighton, Association President. A permit number hulked at the bottom. Official and cold. I didn't sign anything, I told. The empty yard. Across the street, Mr. Alvarez paused mid-run. They came before 5, he said, hands on hips. Unmarked trucks, 2 guys in orange, chainsaws. I thought you knew. Did they say who sent them? He glanced at the notice. The HOA, Marla was there, hard hat and everything. My phone buzzed. Lucy's school calendar. Picture day. Blue ribbon. I saw her in my mind under those branches, feet tapping, book open, patient with the morning. Thanks, I told Mr. Alvarez, because grief makes you polite. Inside, lemon cleaner couldn't cut the sap. I opened the porch camera app. Offline, it said. Last upload, 4:07 a.m. I reset the router. The feed returned to a clean, empty yard. The missing gap felt like a pulled tooth. I knelt by the nearest stump, fingers sticky. The rings were tight, mapped like years on a palm. I counted. 10, 11, 12. Beneath them, a darker crescent glowed, as if the tree remembered its bruise, called the number on the notice. The recording promised a 9 o'clock opening and a prompt reply. I left my voice like a pressed flower. You removed my trees without authorization, I said. Call me back. On the table, a tiny bird's nest lay in a bowl, rescued from the grass. It was lighter than a glove, threaded with a strand of Lucy's blue ribbon. I pressed it to my chest and felt something in me hold, then fray. At 8:59, I stood. Outside the clubhouse, where our HOA performed its theater of benevolence. Through the glass, I saw Marla's silhouette, sharp as a paper cut. She opened the door before I knocked. It's safer this way, she said, smiling like a warning. Behind her, the community covenants gleamed in a gold frame. The word harmony curled like a hook. The security camera above the door winked red. My camera went down, I said. Did yours? Some things, she said, stepping aside, are better not recorded. My phone buzzed again. A text from an unknown number lit the screen. Stop digging. You're not the first. Outside, a truck idled 2 houses down, engine low, windows black. When I looked, it drifted away, as if the street itself had nudged it. Marla watched my eyes track it and said, warm as tea, our job is to protect the community. Protect it from what? I wondered. Paper cuts cleaner than chainsaws. You just don't hear it. The clubhouse smelled like lemon oil and fresh toner. Marla led me past a round table dressed in fake sunflowers to the conference room where the covenants lived behind glass. A pitcher of water sweated between us, beating like nerves. She slid a folder across the table as if she were serving dessert. Independent arborist report, she said. Hazard abatement recommended within 30 days. We expedited for safety. I opened the folder. A letterhead with a pine cone logo. Paragraphs in tight legal cursive. Structural defects, root encroachment, wind throw risk. The trees were called oaks, then sycamores, then maple, Acer saccharum. The report couldn't Decide what my trees were. The photo stapled to the second page was from winter, a different yard entirely, snow rucked at the curb, a cracked sidewalk we don't even have. These aren't my trees, I said. Marla tilted her head. Templates save time, she murmured, as if time were what we'd lost. My phone buzzed under my palm. Unknown number again. They forged mine too. I swallowed. I want to see the permit. She pointed to the stamped number on the notice. City approved. Then why did the crew come unmarked at 4 in the morning? Her smile didn't move her eyes. We try to limit disruption. Disruption. As if the absence were a polite hush. I shut the folder, the papers inside breathing like a trapped bird. Is there a record of the vote? Marla's manicure clicked against the keyboard as she navigated the HOA portal. Executive session, she said. Personnel and legal risk. Minutes are not public. Legal risk? I asked. From my trees? From the insurer, she said. After last summer's storms, they're scrutinizing overhang near structures. It's liability for everyone. The word everyone rang like a bell in an empty church. Behind her, a corkboard held glossy flyers. Community Safety Night, Learn. To Love the Covenants, Architectural Harmony, presented by R&L Risk Consultants. At the bottom of that last one, in light gray, I saw the Pinecone logo again. I texted back, Who are you? Where did they cut? A bubble pulsed, then stopped. 3. Dots like breath held. Finally, check CC&Rs. Lot 14. I looked up. Can I see invoices for the contractor? Marla's mouth pinched. You can submit a records request, 10 business days. But you had 10 minutes to take my shade, I said, voice edged. Her eyes flickered, the smallest flinch. For a heartbeat. I felt my anger steady like a hand on my shoulder. She stood. We're done here. There will be a special assessment to cover emergency services. You'll get the letter. Assessment? My throat went hot. For the community, she said, we all share the cost of safety. Outside, the sun had sharpened to a blade. I drove past the pool, past the tennis courts where rules were posted like prayers, and down to Lot 14. Sadie's house had been empty since winter, her porch swing unthreaded, its chain a broken necklace. The yard across from hers looked normal. 2 thick oaks, a holly hedge. Sadie's yard was a studded crown of stumps, a dozen pale discs ringed in churned soil. The curbs still bore laces of mud from tires, the pattern of a hurried exit. There was yellow tape in the gutter. Not police tape, HOA tape, printed with harmony. My phone buzzed again, this time a photo. Sadie on her porch, hair in a scarf, hands folded, expression set like a drawn curtain. Caption, she fought. They fined her until she didn't. My palms were slick on the steering wheel. I pictured Lucy on that swing, feet not yet touching the ground. I pictured bills with soft words and hard numbers, arriving like weather. I pictured Marla's Pinecone logo printed on a check. When I got home, the porch camera blinked its dumb red eye at me. The little hatch where the memory card sat was ajar. Inside, empty. In its place, a folded scrap of HOA letterhead. On it, in handwriting I didn't recognize, stop making this harder. We prune for safety. Don't make us dig. The second threat didn't come by mail. It was pressed into the dirt with a heel. I stood with the scrap of letterhead in my hand and realized the scuff at the edge of the nearest stump wasn't random. A boot print, deep, the tread a neat basket weave. Beside it, someone had dragged 2 fingers through the sawdust, leaving parallel grooves that pointed toward the porch like an accusation. I slipped the note back into its folded skin and locked the door behind me. The house felt too bright without the trees, sun spilling across the floorboards like an interrogation lamp. My fingers hovered over the bowl, the nest with Lucy's ribbon, then withdrew. If someone had been on the porch once, they could come again. I put the bowl and the ribbon in the oven, the only safe with a gasket and a door. At City Hall, a woman named Dana looked up my permit number with a frown that deepened into a question. "This is a canopy for a cafe on 3rd, she said, tapping her screen. "Issued last spring." "Tree removal?" I asked. She shook her head. "Nothing authorized at your address this month. Any removals require a city arborist inspection." Her eyes flicked to the notice I slid across the counter. "Who's R&L Risk Consultants?" "A vendor the HOA uses," I said. "We don't accept private risk consultants for permits," Dana said. She hesitated, voice lowering. "We've had complaints from your subdivision. Sadie Breen filed one in January. Then she withdrew it." "Why?" Dana spread her hands, the bureaucratic shrug. "Cited personal reasons and non-responsiveness. The inspector assigned to her case took leave. Threatening emails." She paused, then slid a sticky note toward me. "If you want to file, use this form. And be careful. Sometimes people think the city can fix what's really a neighborhood war." Outside, heat hit like applause. Across the street, a black truck idled in. A line of parking. When I lifted my phone to take a picture, it rolled forward and turned the corner, taillights blinking an almost friendly goodbye. My phone vibrated. "Unknown number. Don't go through the city. They bury and delay. Meet me tonight, 9. Behind the tennis courts. Leave your phone at home." I stared at the screen until the words haloed. I typed, "Who are you?" The bubble pulsed and then went still. By the time I reached Lucy's school, the afternoon had softened. She bounded out with her hair frizzed from a plastic comb, cheeks pink from smiling. "They made us say cheese like a mouse," she said. And then, "Where did the trees go? It's too hot." "We're figuring it out," I said, the lie well-meaning and thin. On the way home, she pressed her forehead to the window and watched the sky move. At the house, she paused on the porch. "My ribbon," she said. "It's safe," I told her. "Special place." We ate early. I pretended at normal. The shadows in our yard had become rectangles from other people's fences. When she went to brush her teeth, I stepped outside. A small pink shovel was stuck in the churned soil, the plastic handle stamped with Harmony Cleanup Day. The blade was smeared with sap like honey. Whoever left it wanted me to see child-sized things in the dirt. The intention slid under my skin like a splinter. Inside, the oven door was ajar. I hadn't left it that way. The bowl sat where I'd placed it, but the nest was gone. In its place, a folded photo, glossy as a tongue. I opened it with my heartbeat in my mouth. The image was my porch at 3:57 a.m., the world in the gray of a security camera. Marla stood at the edge of the frame in a hard hat, looking up. A man reached for the little square door under the lens, hand steady, ring flashing. On the back, in a block print I didn't recognize. "Meet me, or we start on your roots." Night doesn't just hide things. It teaches you which sounds you've been taking for granted. I left my phone in the flour canister, buried like a coin, and rang Mr. Alvarez's bell with the note still crumpled in my fist. He looked at the block letters, then at my face, and his runner's calm tightened into a line. "I'll sit with her," he said before I asked. "Go. Lock your back door. Turn on the porch light. Make them be seen if they come." Lucy was already asleep, hair flung across her pillow like a sunbeam. I kissed the warm slope of her forehead and whispered something brave I didn't entirely feel. Mr. Alvarez took the couch. "1 hour," he said. "If you're not back, I'm calling the police." Behind the tennis courts, the lights hummed and moths battered the bulbs like soft fists. A ball machine on court 2 clicked and spit so its metronome could swallow our voices. The chain-link fence was furred with honeysuckle, sweet and ghostly. I waited with my hands in my pockets and counted my own breath until footsteps ticked across the asphalt. She came in sideways from the maintenance gate, lean in a denim jacket, scarf tied at her nape the way it was in the photo someone had sent. Me. Sadie. Up close, she looked older than the porch picture, but only in the way eyes learn after a certain kind of year. "You brought trouble," she said without hello, gaze sliding to the ridgeline of roofs beyond the courts as if the HOA sprouted like teeth. "I think trouble brought me," I said. "You texted?" A corner of her mouth moved. "A neighbor did. I'm not in the directory anymore." She passed me a manila envelope that wasn't quite fat and not quite thin. Before I left, I pulled what I could. Emails, an R&L agreement, 2 executive session agendas they forgot to scrub. "Look at the footers." I eased the flap open. The pinecone logo sat in a pale gray field, nested beside a different name. Brighton Risk Holdings, LLC. "Marla?" I said. "Her husband's portfolio," Sadie said. "Brother-in-law's trucks, cousin's landscaping. They call it abatement. For safety. It's a transfer, from us to them." She watched my face like a mirror. "They target the houses with equity, and the ones whose owners can't come to every meeting. They start with trees, then fines, then liens. Harmony looks pretty on a letterhead until it's on your deed. A moth beat against the light, then went still." The ball machine clicked. Somewhere a sprinkler sputtered and failed. "Why?" "Did you withdraw your complaint?" I asked. Sadie rubbed her forearm as if the memory itched there. "My son started getting sent home for disruptive behavior. He's 6, not disruptive. He chews his sleeve when he's scared." She paused. "The morning after I filed, someone left a dead sparrow in our mailbox. And a note. We prune. You learn which fights make you smaller." I sold fast and low. I felt the ground tilt. "Is there anyone on the board not in on it?" She hesitated. "Jonah, treasurer. He voted no on my fine escalation. They shut him out after. He's got a kid Lucy's age. He might help if you get to him before they do." She tapped the envelope. "There's a draft budget in there with a line item they call canopy normalization. It's where they hide emergency contracts. The insurer's an excuse. The storms are their story. This is profit." Headlights feathered the fence in white. Slices. We both sank into the shadow of the bleachers, metal cold against my calves. A black truck rolled slow along the service lane, engine a held breath. A man got out, the same decisive silhouette I'd seen reach for my camera hatch. His ring caught the light as he swung a can of orange paint. He sprayed a single X on the far side of the fence, and the color bled through diamond by diamond. It looked like a wound pulling itself open. He listened to the night, then made a call, low. I couldn't hear the words, but the cadence felt like certainty. He got back in, taillights pulsing a steady goodbye, and the truck drifted away. "You need to go," Sadie whispered. She pulled a pen from her pocket and wrote a number on the inside flap of the envelope. "Don't text. Don't email. Borrow a line from somewhere that has nothing to do with your name. There aren't payphones anymore," I said. "Exactly," she said. "It makes us smaller." She touched my sleeve, quick and human. "You're not the only one furious. Hold on to that." I ran home the long way, past the pool chairs stacked like bleached bones, past the clubhouse where Harmony glowed in its gold frame. My porch light made a square on the grass like a stage. Mr. Alvarez stood and lifted a hand, relief opening his face. Then I saw it. An orange X stamped across my driveway, the paint still wet enough to shine. And when I slipped the envelope from under my jacket panting, the flap was light with air, empty. The X wasn't a warning, it was a dare. I touched the paint with my fingertip and came away bright. The envelope in my jacket felt wrong, the way a picture frame feels empty before you notice what's missing. At the kitchen table, under the grainy cone of the pendant light, I lifted the flap and found it feather light. The seam was neatly split and pressed back with fresh tack. A thin crescent of adhesive glinted like new skin. Someone had lifted. the papers and resealed it while I was still listening to moths hit the court lights. Sadie? Mr. Alvarez asked, reading my face as he locked the door behind us. Maybe, I said, or someone took it off me. I didn't feel a thing. I inhaled. Citrus. Solvent. They're 2 steps ahead. He glanced toward the hallway where Lucy slept. So we moved 3. We packed a bag for Lucy with the dumbest things. Her blue socks with the foxes, the paperback she's been reading for 3 years. I slipped a photo of her under the elastic of my wallet like an amulet. Mr. Alvarez called his sister, who said, "Bring her, bring her, bring her," the way a person says water to a runner. On the inside flap of the empty envelope, Sadie's number, still looped in ballpoint. "We have to reach Jonah," I said, "from a line that isn't mine." Mr. Alvarez drove us to the 24-hour grocery with the lights that never dim. The parking lot shone like a stage washed with halogen. Inside, the air bit cold and smelled like cilantro and bleach. Near the florist, a scabbed courtesy phone hung under a sign that said, "For store use only." I caught the florist's eye. "My car's dead," I lied. "Please?" She handed me the receiver like a priest hands a chalice. I dialed with my thumb pressed white around the plastic. He picked up on the 4th ring with a wary, "Hello?" "Jonah," I said. "Don't hang up. I'm the Maples on Pineview. Sadie told me to call." Silence like a hand over a mouth. Then, "This isn't safe." "Nothing is," I said. "They painted an X. They took the records." He exhaled through his nose. "Meet me at the far end of the lot by the cart corral. I'm in a gray Civic. 2 minutes. Head down." He was younger than I expected, the kind of tired that lives under the skin of new parents. A car seat gaped like a mouth behind him. He handed me a thumb drive through the barely cracked window and kept his eyes on the rearview mirror. "Copies of everything I could pull, budgets, disbursements, emails where Marla CCs her husband accidentally from his Brighton account." He swallowed. "I emailed them to a reporter and a city archivist from a library terminal, but emails vanish. Drives don't. They'll say I stole this," I said. "Let them," he said. "Better stolen truth than purchased silence." He looked at me then, sharp. "They're going to dig at dawn to remove root hazards. They'll call it an emergency and pay themselves triple for overtime. You can buy 48 hours if you call 811 for a utility locate. They can't legally dig until the lines are marked." "From my phone?" I said. He shook his head and passed me a printout with a number. "Use this. They record calls. That's your proof. If anyone digs before the marks, you call the police and the city and the news, and you stand on the X. They won't dig under a person." His knuckles were white on the steering wheel. "Why are you helping me?" I asked. He nodded at the car. "Seat." "My daughter likes to nap under our pear tree. I'd like her to have a place to dream." Headlights swam along the lot's edge. The black truck rolled by, windows dark. It idled a breath, then drifted on. Jonah's jaw clenched. "Tomorrow at noon, there's a special assessment vote," he said. "Clubhouse. They think it's a rubber stamp. Bring anyone you trust. Bring copies. Bring the city if you can." At home, we woke Lucy softly. She blinked, then wrapped her arms around my neck as I carried her to Mr. Alvarez's car. "It smells different," she whispered into my hair. "Just for a night," I told her. "Adventure." My voice didn't crack until the taillights disappeared. The house hummed emptily. I dialed 811 from the number Jonah gave me and recited our address, the nearest cross street, the color of my porch. The operator's voice was efficient and kind. "Tickets are valid for 3 business days," she said. "Do not allow excavation until the marks are down. If someone starts digging without marks, that's an emergency." "What if they say, 'It is an emergency'?" I asked. "Then they'll have to explain it to the city," she said, "and to the police, and to whoever's filming." A pause. "Be safe." I hung up and stepped outside. The orange X pulsed wet under the porch light, a wound pretending to be a letter. I could hear the neighborhood breathing, air conditioners, a dog's single bark, a distant train, and beneath it, so low it was almost imagined, the early, hungry thrum of engines turning the corner toward dawn. At dawn, the engines came hungry, and I stood where they'd painted the appetite. The street tilted toward morning, pale as a held breath. The black truck slid to the curb and idled, the man with the ring stepping down like he owned the ground. Two others unrolled caution tape and measured the air. One pulled a trenching spade from the bed. I stepped onto the orange X in my bare feet. The paint was tacky and cold. It glued me to my choice. "Ma'am," Ring said, voice even. "For your safety, move off the work area." "For your safety," I said. "I called 811, ticket number 43197. I held up the paper where I'd written it. "No marks, no dig. The call is recorded. If you start, I call the police and the city and the news, and I don't move." He flicked his eyes down the block, where a sprinkling of porch lights had blinked awake. A runner's silhouette detached from the gloom, Mr. Alvarez, breath soft and ready. He took his place on the edge of the lawn like a second stake. "You heard her," he said. "No marks." The florist from the grocery pulled up with a trunk full of buckets for the farmer's market and lifted her phone. A teen on a bike, hair sticking up like a sunrise, coasted to a stop and started filming. Engines sound different when there are witnesses. Marla arrived wearing her hard hat like a crown. "Emergency abatement," she sang, holding up a clipboard. "Root intrusion under the sidewalk. We are protecting the community from liability. Please remove yourself so the professionals can work." "Which permit?" I asked. "The cafe canopy? Or the one you wrote on your own letterhead?" Her smile tightened to thread. "We are within our rights." "Then why is Brighton risk? Holdings on your vendor's footer?" I said. "Why do your invoices cut checks to your husband's LLC?" I tapped the thumb drive in my fist. "Do you want me to read the disbursement codes, or would you like the reporter to?" Sirens yawned close, then sat down. A squad car stopped at the corner. Behind it, a white city truck with Public Works stamped on the door. The officer climbed out, one hand on his belt, the other shading his eyes. "Everyone take a breath," he said. "Who's the property owner?" "I am," I said, lifting my hand without leaving the X. The Public Works tech glanced at my bare toes, then at the curb. "No utility marks," she said. "No dig. You know the drill." Marla's cool broke. "This is a hazard," she snapped. "We are liable." "Not yet," the officer said. "Right now you're warned." He turned to the crew. "You dig here, you answer to me." Ring looked through me as if choosing a knot to cut. Then he lifted his hand and tapped the side of his nose like we were sharing a secret. "Pack it," he told his men. The trenching spade slid back into the truck with a private shiver. They rolled away as if the street had spit them out. At noon, the clubhouse swelled like a hive. Bodies, whispers, the sweet rot of fake flowers. Jonah stood near the back, shirt wrinkled, eyes clear. The reporter he'd emailed waited with a notebook. Dana from City Hall slipped into a chair in the second row and didn't introduce herself. Marla called the special assessment to order. Words like safety and community floated like petals. When she asked for a motion, Mr. Alvarez's hand rose. "Before we vote," he said, "let's hear the treasurer." Jonah's voice shook once and steadied. He placed a stack of copied emails on the table, Brighton's pine cone gleaming faint as a bruise in each footer. "Conflict of interest," he said. "Unauthorized vendors, forged reports, a permit number for a cafe canopy." He met faces one by one. "You didn't just cut down trees, you cut down trust." The room changed temperature. The reporter's pen scratched. Dana cleared her throat. "The city will be opening an inquiry into permitting and contractor compliance," she said. "All work in this subdivision is suspended until review." A woman I knew only as the one with the dachshund lifted her voice. Motion to table. The assessment, she said. Motion to audit. Motion to recall. It wasn't clean. Marla invoked procedure like a spell. People shouted and cried and laughed too loudly, because shock wears many hats. But by the time the sun swung toward the tennis courts, there was a petition in circulation and a stack of signatures heavy as a book. That evening, the public works tech knelt in my yard and spray-painted blue and red and yellow hieroglyphs, where the bones of the neighborhood lay. She drew a bright white line through the orange X and winked at me. "They can't cross that," she said. When Mr. Alvarez brought Lucy home, she ran to the stumps and pressed her ear to one as if it could still tell secrets. "It sounds like the ocean," she said. On the porch rail, the nest sat again, ribbon. Threaded through, no note. Maybe a warning, maybe a truce. Maybe a reminder that some things return in their own shape. We planted 2 saplings at dusk, their roots like soft hands. The neighborhood smelled like damp dirt and possibility. Harmony, I thought, isn't something you frame. It's a thing you grow and guard and refuse to let be cut. The engines didn't come back that night, but I slept in my shoes anyway, just in case.